The strange man with the twisted arms. This is a story sent in by William. Every time I close my eyes, I see those arms, that disturbing posture no human being should be capable of. It's been 3 years since that afternoon in Hyannis, Massachusetts, and I still wake up drenched in sweat, feeling like someone's watching me. Dr. Mitchell, my therapist, says writing about the trauma might help. So here I am, 3:47 a.m., sitting in my dorm room at Brown, trying to see if writing really does help, and sharing this with you. It was July 2021, one of those suffocating New England summers that makes you regret ever leaving the AC. My parents had gone to our summer home in Cape Cod, the one on Ocean Street that my dad bought after making partner at the law firm. I was a senior in high school and finally old enough to stay home alone for a weekend. There's pulled pork in the blue container with the white lid, my mom said before leaving, adjusting her bag on her shoulder, and pizza money in the kitchen drawer below the coffee maker next to the bread bag. She's always been that specific, a trait I inherited, and ironically one that would help me survive that afternoon. The first night alone was every teenager's dream. I binged Call of Duty on my Xbox Series X until the early hours, sprawled on the living room couch surrounded by empty Doritos bags and Mountain Dew cans. By the time I dragged myself to bed, the sun was already peeking over the suburban rooftops. A notification on my iPhone woke me up the next afternoon. A message from Kyle about street hockey at 3. I glanced at the clock. 1:17 p.m. Crap. I scrambled out of bed and headed to the second-floor bathroom, leaving a trail of clothes behind me. It was during my usual overly long shower. I mean, when my parents aren't home, I really go overboard. I was in there for about 45 minutes, endlessly scrolling Reddit. That's when I heard it, the unmistakable creak of our back door, the heavy wooden one that's ridiculously loud when it opens and closes. I froze instantly because I knew, without a doubt, I should have been alone. That creak would haunt me every time I opened a door for the next 3 years. I stood there for about 2 minutes, straining to hear any other sound, and nothing. My phone slipped from my wet fingers, landing silently on the plush bath mat. The steam from the shower now felt suffocating. I stayed completely still, water dripping down my face. Then I turned off the shower, trembling and counting the seconds in sync with the droplets falling from the faucet. 1, 2, 3. Nothing but silence. 4, 5, 6. Just the distant hum of the AC. 7, 8, 9. Maybe it was just the wind, or maybe my parents had come home early, although they always used the front door. Always. I wrapped a white towel around my waist and headed toward the back stairs. The staircase leading to the kitchen where the back door is narrow and surrounded by walls, like a tight hallway. You can't see the kitchen until you're all the way down. Each step felt like part of a symphony of tension. Even stepping on the edges of the wood where it's more solid, the stairs creaked, announcing my approach. On the second to last step, I stopped. My heart was pounding against my ribs like it was trying to escape my chest. A nervous laugh escaped my lips, the kind that comes when your brain tries to convince your body there's nothing to fear. I took a deep breath to calm myself. "You're being ridiculous, William. There's no one..." And then I saw him. In the middle of our kitchen, about 6 feet away from me near the fridge, stood a man, or honestly something. He was there, like a glitch in reality, tall, wearing what looked like a faded brown trench coat, and with a smile that stretched far beyond what any human face should allow. But it was the arms, those damn arms, twisted at impossible angles like the gnarled branches of a dead tree, slightly raised and pulled back in a posture that defied human anatomy and sanity. That stance, those arms, they would haunt me in every shadow I glimpsed for days afterward. I don't know why I remember it so vividly, but it was the most unnatural, demonic thing I'd ever seen. Swear to God, I think I almost had a heart attack right there. What happened next is a blur of adrenaline and instinct. I remember charging forward, an incredibly stupid but reflexive move driven by sheer terror, and hitting him in the jaw with everything I had. He fell, or I think he did. I didn't stick around to check. I bolted back up those stairs, my heart racing, leaving the towel behind. I locked myself in my room, shoved my desk against the door, and dialed 911, crying as I explained to the dispatcher what had happened. Then the light beneath the door disappeared. The darkness that replaced it still visits me in the deepest corners of my nightmares. Damn. That thing was standing right outside my door, silently waiting. Minutes stretched into an eternity as the dispatcher kept saying, "Hello, sir, are you there? Hello?" Her voice barely registered over the sound of my shallow breaths and the faint movement beyond the door. I didn't want to make a sound, and even if I had, I don't think I could have moved my arms to bring the phone closer. There are no words to describe what I felt. I was paralyzed, staring at the shadow shifting slightly in the gap under the door. Curled up, I prayed for it to leave. Eventually, the light returned, and I heard faint footsteps creaking down the wooden floorboards as it walked away down the hall. A few minutes later, I heard banging on the front door and the sound of 2 officers entering the house. But it was gone, like a nightmare, deciding to let you wake up at the peak of terror. I felt a small sense of safety as the cops arrived. I opened the door, almost crying as I let them in. They searched the house, asked questions, took photos, worked with a forensic artist. Nothing. Now, as I finish writing this on my laptop, I glance occasionally at the dorm window. The campus is quiet at this hour, shadows of trees swaying under the streetlights. And sometimes, between blinks, I'm sure I see a figure standing out there. Still, smiling, with arms in a very strange position. The sound of silence. 17 years have passed, and I still jolt awake every time I hear a radio click off. My wife, Sarah, says it's normal. Trauma clings to the smallest, most mundane details. As I watch my 6-year-old son sleeping in the next room, I think about how that Tuesday in November 2006 shaped not just who I am, but how I choose to protect my family. It was autumn in Westchester County, New York, the kind of chilly morning where your breath turns to tiny clouds and dry leaves dance across the sidewalks. I was a typical American teenager, backup quarterback for the Yorktown High Huskers, proud owner of a 2002 Chevy Avalanche, though I technically could only drive it with supervision, and blissfully unaware of how quickly life can flip upside down. The ticking of the digital clock on my nightstand read 6:30. 17 years later, I can still hear that metallic sound, counting down the seconds until everything changed. Mom was following her usual morning routine, dressed in her New York Presbyterian nurse's uniform. "I'll be back at 7:25 to take you," she said, adjusting my sister Katie's backpack in the back seat of the Honda Civic. "And finish that Cold War history paper." The Walmart radio in my room blared a Red Hot Chili Peppers song as I went downstairs to crank up the volume. It was a weird habit of mine, needing loud music to focus, but it was my morning ritual. The sound echoed through our empty 2-story house on Maple Street, bouncing off the walls. That would be the last day I ever felt safe listening to music alone. By 6:55, steam from the shower had fogged up the bathroom mirror. That's when it happened. The silence. Not the natural kind when you turn something off. This was abrupt, violent, like reality itself had been severed. Before the quiet could even settle, I heard it. Faint breathing, plural, coming from downstairs. It wasn't just one person. The kind of sound your body registers as danger before your brain catches up. My hand froze inches from the faucet, water droplets trailing down the metal like cold tears. Through the cracked bathroom door, I saw something my brain refused to process at first. Gloved fingers, covered in black leather, slowly unplugging the radio. The movement was deliberate, almost careful, like the intruder wanted to ensure absolute silence. Sometimes, in my nightmares, those fingers move in slow motion. And in the worst of those dreams, they turn toward me. The sound that came next froze my blood, muffled laughter. Not the nervous kind you'd expect from amateurs, but calculated, controlled. The kind of laugh from someone who's done this many times before. "Nice house," a voice whispered downstairs, smooth and polite. "Family's organized, everything in its place," another replied. "See the photos?" "Yeah, 3 in the hallway. Dad, Mom, 2 kids. They had studied our home, studied us. That thought twisted my stomach into knots. The linen closet was 3 steps from the bathroom. I knew this because I'd counted them countless times as a kid, playing hide and seek with Katie. Never imagined that knowledge would one day save my life. The soft creak of the wooden floorboards. A voice closer to the stairs. Footsteps. 3 steps, then boots hitting the first riser. My iPhone 3G trembled in my sweaty hands as I wedged myself between shelves of towels and bottles of Tide. The smell of fabric softener mixed with something else, tobacco and a metallic tang I didn't want to identify. Grab the Dell laptops first. The gravelly voice was closer now. Check for documents too, anything useful. Did you sweep the second floor? Came a reply. There's an avalanche in the driveway. Someone's got to be home. A younger voice piped up, anxious. Then find them, the polite voice commanded, now edged with cruelty. No witnesses today. Those words, no witnesses today, would become the mantra of my nightmares. I dialed my mom's number with hands that barely felt like my own. Even as a 250-pound linebacker, I had never felt so small. Mom, I whispered, choking on the words. 3 or 4 men? In the house? I'm in the closet. Call the police. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Then with a voice heavy with maternal fear, okay. That single word held universes of terror that I didn't fully understand until I held my own child for the first time. The next few minutes were a symphony of terror. Glass shattering, Grandma's crystal collection, metal scraping, Dad's office drawers, footsteps climbing the stairs, 1, 2, 3, 4 distinct sets. Then shadows under the closet door. The handle jiggled. It's locked. 2 words that still wake me up in cold sweats every November. The sirens came like salvation, painting the walls in streaks of red and blue through the closet cracks. A cop's voice calling my name. My mom's desperate hug on the dew-covered lawn. 6 men were arrested that day, all with criminal records at the Westchester County Department of Corrections, but their arrest didn't lock away my demons or my fear. The diagnosis came in December. PTSD therapy sessions with Dr. Richardson in White Plains, nightmares, anxiety. The Planet Fitness gym became my sanctuary. Every weight I lifted was an attempt to strengthen not just my body, but my fractured soul. Today, as Sarah sleeps beside me and our kids rest safe in their rooms, I still check the locks 3 times before bed. We have a top-of-the-line ADT security system, and I still wake up at the faintest, unusual sound. But that scared boy in the closet taught me something. Sometimes, the scariest silence can give way to the sweetest sounds, like my kids laughing in our backyard in Scarsdale, protected by tall fences and security cameras. Because some stories don't end when the danger passes, they just turn the page to a new chapter, eyes that watch. Sometimes, when I'm home alone and glance out the window, I still see that silhouette. The man with the white Honda. 2 years have passed, but the feeling of being watched never really goes away. My therapist at the Seattle Anxiety Center says it's normal. Your brain learns to expect danger after something like that, especially when you never really find out what their intentions were. It was April in the Pacific Northwest, one of those mornings where the mist clings to the trees like a ghost that doesn't want to leave. Our house, a cedar red cabin perched on a cliff, overlooked 5 acres of dense forest. The kind of isolation that feels dreamy until you realize how truly alone you are. That morning, the loneliness felt heavy. It had a presence. I pulled open the blinds in my bedroom, letting the morning light flood in. That's when I saw him for the first time. A man in his mid-30s wearing a navy baseball cap and a gray jacket. He wasn't just walking. He was studying, observing, like a predator sizing up its prey. His hands on his hips weren't casual. It was a stance of possession, like he had already decided this space, and the person inside it belonged to him. I watched as he circled the house, his eyes scanning every window, every possible entry. My heart raced when he disappeared around the far side of the house, the perfect blind spot where the security cameras didn't reach, the sound of twigs snapping under his boots. The white Honda Civic parked in front of our house had no plates. Through the driver's side window, I could see an open laptop on the passenger seat, its screen glowing. It looked like it had several photos displayed on it. Even now, years later, I wonder if those photos were of me. if he'd been watching me before. And for how long? The first call to 911 was maddening. Indifference to terror is its own kind of horror. While I waited, he kept up his ritual, circling the house again and again, each pass bringing him closer. Then, the call came. An unknown number flashed on my iPhone screen like a warning. The voice on the other end wasn't just heavy breathing, it was a whispered promise. Your bedroom has such a beautiful view of the cliff, especially when you open the blinds in the morning, like now. Those words still haunt my dreams. How long had he been watching me? You're stunning, beautiful, but so alone. I want you all to myself, he continued, and soon you'll be mine. I've got it all planned out. Your college schedule, your morning runs, the time it takes for the police to get here. 17 minutes on average. Then he hung up. My hands trembled as I called 911 again. From the window, I saw him return to his car, a satisfied smile on his face as he fiddled with his laptop. The loud male voice coming from the car wasn't the radio. It was a recording. My voice. Conversations I'd had in the yard with my friends. To this day, I still check my yard for recording devices. By the time the police finally arrived, he was already gone, driving away with the same calculated calm he'd had when he showed up that morning. All that was left behind were a few scattered flyers that the officer handed me, supposedly from a landscaping company. I told the officers everything. They asked some questions, promised to look into it, and left. They said they'd try to track down the man and the company listed on the flyer. The flyer had a phone number, but when I looked it up later, it didn't exist. The unknown number from earlier now appeared fully on my phone. I called it back, and this time, he answered. I'm just a landscaper your mother hired. Should I come back to finish the job? Then he hung up again. I tried calling back, but this time the number was out of service. It didn't make sense. I called my mom and asked if she'd hired a landscaper. Her response was firm. I'm certain I never hired a landscaper. We don't even need one. Today our security system has been upgraded. Cameras cover every possible angle. But on some nights, when the fog rolls in thick, I swear I see a white Honda parked in the distance. And sometimes, very rarely, my phone rings with an unknown number. I never answer, because some people don't need doors or windows to break into your life. They're already living in your head.